Hey guys, welcome to this Kingfisher tutorial. I really hope that you like this one. Remember, you don't have to put a background in or even the branch if you don't like. If you just want to practice the feathers and the beak texture and that sort of thing, you don't have to put everything in. Either way, remember to put the outcomes of this one in the Facebook group and your works in progress as well on the Patreon page, because I'd love to see how they work out. And let's get started. Alright, so we're going to get started with the Kingfisher. So I've got a really sharp black pencil. Just going to do the eye. So just going around really lightly. Let's go the warm grey one. No, I'll just go the white actually. We'll go here. And then we'll go the cold grey, warm grey one. There, and then at the back here. Really lightly here. Go this way, really lightly. This way. warm grey 1. Just blend this back section a little bit. In the eye there's a bit of a browny tone, so we'll use a bit of the cadmium orange, just really lightly, and then a bit of the burnt sienna, again just really lightly. Then black will get darker around the outside now. So then start to make this bit really small. Tiny glint in the eye. Blend this down a little bit. Darker around the back. And up here. Warm grey 1, blend that down. And then we'll just do little dots of white. Like that. And then the burnt sienna. Okay, then there's like a little whiter section here, so go around that. Then lighter over here, it's like a shadow. And then here, a couple of little lines. Then here, so it goes around like that. So what you can do as well is, if you get a slice tool, because we've put the white pencil in, if we want to slice up a little bit of this line, you can just go really lightly and it will come up pretty well. And then you could go in with a little bit more of this. Back over with the black. And the same in the whites highlight section. So it comes up really bright. It's because we've got that white waxiness at the bottom. Same here. Like that, white over that bit, and we'll just make this a little rounder. like that. Cool. Okay, so we're going to, I think we're going to start on the top of the head. It's hard to think about where we're going to start with this guy. But what I think I'm going to do is we're going to use the cold grey one and just do a little bit of this colour at the top of the head. So you see on the top of the head you can see those white feathers. So I think we're going to do those. Just a little bit of a base layer. So just at the top of the head. Usually in pieces like this I would probably go through and do a base layer everywhere of this, but I really want these feathers to be really nice and bright, so I think we're just going to go straight in with the light cobalt turquoise. Actually, let's go in with some of the cold grey 6, just where you can see these bits here, and just put in a couple of these little like darker lines. So this is where that sort of browny pinky section is. Up here. Here. So it's not perfect, but it's close enough. And then we'll get the light cobalt turquoise. And start to put this in. So we'll go up here. Gonna erase this a bit more. The top of the head. So doing some like sweeping motions in the direction that the feathers are going. Doing some like little fur strokes, line strokes, so that there's like little bits of white in between, so you can see that there's little white gaps in the feathers. I keep going to say fur, it's definitely not fur. And then this way. And then just start to make this section a little bit smaller. And so under here is a little bit blue. And then up here this is where it gets orange. So make sure to go in the direction that the feathers are going. And we'll just stay above this white section for now. Little lines going back in. You're going to say fur lines. Like that. So we want it to be really nice and vibrant. Really light sort of shading over here because it's more of a green tone. And then some up in here. So using a bit of the sharper point, we can do some little harder lines. So pay attention to the reference photo, the way that the feathers are going. Little lines up here. Cobalt green. So really lightly on the side. More of this green tone. I want to add in a little bit more of like a different green tone, like a yellowy green. So we're going to use the permanent green olive. Up here, so lines. Up here, it's a little bit of a brighter green, isn't it? Okay, and then as we get further back here, it's a bit more of a light phthalo blue colour. So light phthalo blue, really lightly. This way. Like this. Up here. Little strokes with the sharp point. This way. Okay, so we have some sort of whitish sort of sections in. Okay, so what we can do is go through with some of the cold grey 4 and start to put in these little lines. So here, just really lightly with the sharpest point of the pencil. Yeah, so just doing some of these little layers of yeah. Then here, up here, so sort of do some in the direction of the feathers, and then also against the direction. So remember, just really light. We will work up with the black as well, so we're not going, you know, this isn't the end of the stripes. Like that. So then in the middle here is where it's a little bit darker. Here, it's a little bit of a grey tone in there. So maybe some of the white waxy pencil. Okay. A lot of little details up here. Then here. So I'm trying to kind of follow the right markings and things like that, but you know, no one's gonna know if they're in the wrong spot. Different sizes, but we do want to have a lot of little details in there, so and you can kind of see in the photo that they kind of match up either side. So like that. That. Up here. Up here. Like this, and then here. Like that. Some lines going back in. So what we can do as well is just get our embossing tool nice and clean and go over here with the light cobalt turquoise. A little bit of the light phthalo blue. Little lines. Cold grey 6. Little lines coming down here. Ooh. Lines going up. Lines going down here. And then up here. Little lines here. Okay, like that. So then we can go through, resaturate the colours and sort of blend it down a little bit. So using the light cobalt turquoise. Just blending it down a little bit. Staying out of this white section. Like that. Just nice and gentle. Okay, close this up a little bit more. Okay, a little bit of the permanent green olive again. I sort of think it's sort of green enough. A little bit maybe over here. In here. This green's really strong, so you don't want to go in with too much. Okay, and then some of the light phthalo blue. So we can see that there's darker and lighter bits throughout here. So we want to try and get, like, have a little bit more darker and lighter sections. So sort of going darker where the lines are, the cold grey lines that we put in, but sort of leaving gaps. In here. Darker coming out here. In the direction that the feathers are going. Lighter over here. Okay, so you can see a bit of that dark and lightness coming through. So I might just have a look at the, because I also picked out the Folio blue and the middle Folio blue. Middle Folio blue, we'll try that one and do over here. Like this. Okay. All right. Just going to write these down. Oops. All right, and then we can go in with the black. So we want this to be really sharp. Nice and sharp point. really light little lines. So, okay, so really sharp with the black. Here. Around like that. Here. Up here. Up here. That. Like that. That. Here's where the white bit is. Here. this way. Up here, okay, so that's looking pretty good. So let's go in here, and there's some warm grey one. So here, this is the white beigey bit. Here. Let's get ivory. Tiny little bit of cadmium orange, really, really lightly. Let's get the cold grey 6. So really sharp point on the pencil. I'm going to sharpen this. Then here, so really light lines, and then just really light shading to sort of darken it up a bit. And then here, steps, tiny little, I can't talk, tiny little lines here. And then under here, there's like a little bit of a shadow, so really, really lightly. Ivory. Cadmium orange. Really, really lightly. Just one little bit there. Okay, and then we'll get the cold grey 6 again. So it goes from about here to here. Then here, so this is where the darkest section is, and then it gets to here. there. And then here. So then some of the cadmium orange. Like that. Okay, ivory. Burnt sienna. So here. Like that, then ivory. Cold grey 6. Burnt sienna. White. Burnt sienna. Okay, and then there's like a little black bit here. 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 So here. There, and then burnt sienna. And black. Like that, burnt sienna. dark cold grey 6, cadmium orange, black, up here, cadmium orange, then some white, the burnt sienna, and then black, okay, so this goes okay. Cute. So let's do this little section here. So we did the embossing tool before. We might just do a couple of little lines where you can see these 3 little feathers just to keep them nice and bright. 1, 2, 3, that was far too big. Oops. Let's go cadmium orange. So here, there it is. Okay, and then we'll go, let's do a little bit of the white. So if you're using a white waxy pencil, just like clean it off a little bit. It might have colour on it, and we'll just go in here a little bit, and then the ivory around it. Cadmium orange. Couple little lines in there, and then like that, and then maybe a little bit of burnt sienna. Really, really lightly, just build it up real gradually. We need a little bit of red in there, I think. Maybe some of the light cadmium red. Here. Ivory. We'll do a little bit of the red in here as the dark cadmium red, light cadmium red. Yeah. Some lines down here, like this. Alright, and then we can get some of the cold grey 6 and just start to blend out here. Do a couple of really little lines. That was too big. Here. Couple little bit of okay, then the burnt sienna, some really sharp sort of lines going into this bit. Might get the slice tool. Burnt cadmium orange. Okay, some of the white and go over here. Like that. And then a little bit more, let's go some of the, which one? Maybe cold grey 6, just very, very lightly. Black. Okay, and then I think we'll go maybe this little blue section underneath, because we're, you know, on the blue train. So under here. It is a lot more saturated when you only use the, like, don't do a base layer, which is exactly what we want. So remember, the beak will go up here till around about here. So don't go over that bit. And then here, and it'll go okay, so then here, we'll go to here, and then it comes up here. Here, here, okay, and then some of the light phthalo blue. Then here, this way, like that, and then down here. Okay, and then we'll add some of the cobalt green. There's a bit of green over here. I think we need to just pencil in this beak. So the top of the beak, so it goes to around here. This way. Like that. And then really lightly just doing the lines again, because we want to see that sort of white coming through. this way. This is not green, I'm doing the blue. Okay, so back to the cobalt green. That was the light phthalo blue. Yeah, really lightly. And then a little bit greener with the permanent green olive. Remember, this one is very bright. So really just lightly on the side, just really, so you can really see that green tone come through pretty quick. So you only need to use a little bit. Okay, and then back to the cold grey 6. So paying attention to the reference photo, and it's sort of, it comes, this is the end of the wing, and then it comes just to around here. Then back, back, back. And then this way. This way. This way. Down here. Here. Alright, and then let's get bluer with the middle folio blue. So, up here, here, and then sort of at the bottom, it's like a little bit darker, and then towards the end it's a little bit lighter. Like that. leaving some gaps in there because you want that light section to be coming through. Okay, and then if we need to, we can probably use a little bit of the light cobalt turquoise and blend it down. Okay, let's get the black. So here, make it nice and sharp. Going back into the feathers. And then here, up here, this way. Okay, let's get the white and go here, 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 some of the middle folio blue and do some little lines in here. Sharpen this. Like that. Okay. So you can, you know, put some white over, break it up with the blue, put some white over, break it up with the black. Just keep going until you're sort of happy with it. We're going to, you know, don't stress too much about this underneath section yet because we're going to put in the rest of the, you know, the body. Okay, let's do this little light section underneath. So ivory. So a little bit of cadmium orange underneath. I'm going to use the embossing tool, just do a couple little lines down here. Then we can do okay, and then the ivory. And then let's get some cold grey one. And do some little lines up here. Oh, my proportions on this are so tricky because I think on my screen the reference photo is quite big. So I'm like, oh, it goes all the way back to here, but it doesn't at all. Okay. So Then cold grey 6. This one, or burnt sienna. Okay, so we can get this a little bit darker later once we put the beak in. Okay, but he's looking nice and shiny. Alright, let's do this beak. So, eraser really lightly. So we need a really sharp pencil. We're going to use the cold grey 6. So this top section. So when you're doing this, just do it really lightly. Okay, if you make a mistake or you're not happy with it, you can just erase it straight away. If you go in with a really hard pressure, oof, it's really hard to get up. So this orange bit and the beak sort of goes down here. Okay. Yeah. Like that, and then underneath, little pointy bit. And it goes to here. So just take your time. Ooh. Here. Okay, and then there's like a darker bit under here. Under here. Okay, so this is where we look back. Sit back, have a little look. Looks alright. Looks like a beak. Okay, and then underneath the bottom is like an orange tone. So cadmium orange, lightly on the side, there's a bit of a orange bounce light here, so we're just going to put a little bit of that in here. up here. So we're just gonna put in up here. And then, so it comes sort of down from here, and that's the top of that. And then just underneath that, starting around here, is that other line. And it goes all the way sort of to here. Okay, and then there's another little bit here. Here. So just using the sharp point of the pencil, and then up here. And then little darker lines here. So remember, we're going to go in with the black as well, so don't stress about, it's not dark enough yet or anything like that. Okay, and then we'll go up here and just start to add some really light, gentle shading. Darker line sort of here. Really light shading. Make it sort of, not solid colour. That, and then here, here, a little bit of a line there. So getting a little bit darker. Like that. Let's get some of the cold grey one and we can do sort of a base over this. Let's go the cold grey 6. Cold cadmium orange. Then dark cadmium red, just at the top of the lippy bit. White, cold, soft white at the bottom, cold grey 6. White, black, okay, let's start getting darker with the black, so we really need a very sharp point, and we're doing the same thing. Remember, just go with a really light pressure, just because if you do stuff it up, so if you do make a mistake, sometimes you can just go darker around it, like you don't have to erase it or anything like that. Just get a bit darker next to it or underneath or something like that, and it will, you know, sort of blend in. At the top of this, the opening of the beak. Cadmium orange, we're going with a little bit more at the bottom. It'll help to blend it down and also add that orange tone. Could even do a little bit of the dark cadmium orange. Okay, then let's go in with some light blue, the light Phthalo blue. Light cobalt turquoise, sorry. Down here, just really lightly. adding blue in white helps to darken it up. Let's go with some of the middle folio blue, really lightly just on the side. You don't want it to be like blue, you just want a little bit of this tone. Black. Darker here. There we go. Little ripples. And then let's blend it down with the white. So we're just going to go really lightly with the white waxy pencil. This will blend it all down, sort of make it that like opaque color, go around the very black sections. And then here, black. Okay, and then up here, maybe some cold grey A6. Up here. Okay, up here, do a little bit of shading. And then more white. And then black. Here. So just keep going until you're sort of happy with it. Just going to slice away a little bit of this. White. And then some black lines. Okay. And then we could slice away some of these bits. White. Okay. Okay, a little bit darker up here. Okay, so I think we're looking at it too much. Let's have a break. It's pretty late here. So we'll have a break and we can come and start the body next. But yeah, I'm happy with that so far. Okay, so I think we'll just do this little section under here and then this bit here, and then we'll do a big section of the breast of the bird. So underneath here is quite greeny, darky. So we're going to get the kneaded eraser. Erase a bit of this. It's pretty dark, so it won't matter. And then just using the permanent green olive under here. Here. Up here. So there's some really light, sort of shimmery green bits in here. So we want to leave those light, and then just lightly fill this in. And then there's a lot of that bluey green in here, so the light cobalt turquoise. This will be under here. Go over this whole thing. Go over really lightly. And then white. Let's get the soft white, and we're just going to go over these bits just to keep them nice and bright. So then cadmium orange, because it's oranger under here. And then deep red. So in here with a bit of the deep red. Really lightly over this. And then the cadmium orange. Here. Ivory. Light yellow glaze. Just sort of around the edges, not through the whole thing. And then cold grey 6. Go cadmium orange again, make it like a round shape. Cold grey 6. In here really lightly. darker in here. White. Black. Then here, and then start to close it up a little bit. Go a tiny bit of the cobalt green. More black. Really light over here. Cold grey 6. Blend this down a little bit. Let's go the white. Okay, and then we'll get the light yellow glaze and just do a little bit over this where this feather flicks over. Do a couple little flickies, and then cadmium orange. Oh my god, my dog's barking at something. Oi, shh. Excuse me. Everyone's going to be terrified of that dog. Clucking like a chicken. Then cold grey 6. And then light, yes, light cobalt turquoise. In this green section. And then up here. So here. Like that. And then some of the cobalt green. So it's not like, actually let's add a little bit of the permanent green olive, just really lightly to add that greeny tone. It's really lightly, and like it's not a solid color, there's still these sort of little different color changes in there, so we'll just try and add a little bit of that in. A couple little lines here, and then lightly blend it just to get that green tone. It's really lightly again because this color is really green. Well, you know, like it is green. But it goes down pretty quickly. Cobalt green. Like that, maybe a little bit of white, just over a couple of bits to give it a little bit of contrast, and then black. This way. And then down here. And then some of the cobalt green, blend it down. Black. Okay, and then we'll go the cadmium orange again. Black. And then we'll do some little flicks coming out. And then white. Alright, so what we're going to do is just use the cadmium orange, and we're just going to go in to this sort of top section and just map in where we can see the darkest bits. So this is just figuring out where sort of these darker sections are and putting them in. So there's like a little bit here, like just where you can see those like little clumps. Then here. Here. like that, and then around here. So, you know, I always say it, but no one's gonna know if there's things in the wrong spot, that sort of thing. But it is just kind of good practice to try and get things in the right place. This way. And we're going in the direction of the feathers, so make sure to move around the piece. So then here, and then here, then here, so it comes down from here. Up here. So remember as well, like we can make these bits a little bit smaller and extend them out as we go. This way. Oh, there's bugs in here. Oh, it's like a little fly. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we can see in here there's a couple of really bright yellow sections. So this is where we'll put in the light yellow glaze. So here I've moved this. This was far too far down. I don't know what I was doing then. I think I was zoomed in on my reference photo a bit much and just thought it was bigger than it is. So just around about here. Yellow around about here, yellow, and then here. And then just a couple of little lighter bits so we can see them coming through. Very vibrant. Okay. So then we'll add in some of the dark cadmium orange. No. Yes. Yes. Let's go the dark cadmium orange, and I'm just going to sharpen this. I think that'll be easier. So now we're going to go into these darker sections and start to sort of extend them out. Up here, getting a bit darker here. And then I'm going to add in some of the dark, deep red. No, burnt sienna, where it's more of like a little bit of a brown tone. Using the sharp point, just do some little lines. Here. Here. Can add in some of the deep red. Dark cadmium orange. Like that. Cadmium orange. Start to build in some of that cadmium orange in between. And then here, let's add a little bit of the light chrome, light yellow glaze. Here. Cold grey, cadmium orange. Just going in between these yellow sections. Burnt sienna, deep red, and then a bit of cadmium orange in between. So darker here, going into that yellow section, but you want to sort of keep that nice and bright. Let's go some of the burnt sienna right next to this blue. Cadmium orange down here. So some sharper bits coming up. Burnt sienna. Down here. A little bit of the dark cadmium orange. Burnt sienna in this bit, just a couple of little lines. Deep red, this really needs to be sharper. Oh, didn't work. Dark red. Cadmium orange. Burnt sienna. Light cadmium red. Burnt sienna. Cadmium orange. So here, do a couple of little orange lines over there. Burnt sienna, lighter, dark cadmium orange, this way, and then here. Cadmium orange, so just doing some like little shading and then a couple little lines here and there just so you can see that yellow coming through. Burnt sienna. Here. Darker down here. And then dark cadmium orange. Cadmium orange. Like that, a little bit of the dark cadmium orange. And then over here, cadmium orange because it's a bit lighter. Shading, a couple of lines coming up. So it's like a lighter yellow in there. light cadmium red, no, dark cadmium orange. Under here. Couple little lines. So then over here, getting a little bit darker in here. Like that. And then burnt sienna, lightly. Cadmium orange. So we'll do some little lines up here because there's a bit of yellow coming through. And then you can sort of do some lines up here and then just sort of lightly shade over the section and still see that sort of lightness coming through. You can also resaturate some of the yellow if you need to. Really lightly. Some of the cadmium orange, dark cadmium orange. Lines up here. So sort of darker at the base, and then you blend it up. This way, it's a lot darker over this side. And then cadmium orange in between here. Some little lines coming up. And then just lightly blend over. Little lines coming up. And then blending over. And then burnt sienna. Up in here. Up up in here, so where we can see these darker bits. Go in with some of the yellow again. Cadmium orange. Lines through here. Darker in here. Burnt sienna. And then let's go the deep red. Deep red. Try to sharpen this again if it doesn't break on me again. Okay. So here, here, up here, dark cadmium orange. Cadmium orange here. Here, then need to sharpen this too. Ow. Here. Up here. Burnt sienna. So let's go over this reddy sort of section again. cadmium orange, blend this in a little bit. Let's go some more of the yellow down here, up here. Then the dark cadmium orange. Up here. Burnt sienna. Dark red, deep red. Cadmium orange. Break this up a little bit. Dark cadmium orange. Okay, it's looking cute. We probably need to get a little bit darker over here. Burnt sienna. Dark cadmium orange. Deep red. Okay, and then we can do this little puffy section over here. So this is a bit of an ivory colour over here, and it goes sort of out to the right. Cadmium orange. Cadmium orange. Here. Like that, and then here. Also over here, I'm feeling it's a bit of a pinky tone. So we'll do a tiny bit of the dark cadmium orange, just really lightly on the side, like hardly touching the page. Go back in with the ivory. You can repeat that a couple of times if you need to sort of get it a little bit darker. Ivory. Dark cadmium orange. So this bit comes down here. Cadmium orange. burnt sienna. So cadmium orange, do a couple of little lines in here. Dark cadmium orange. No, this is the deep red. Dark cadmium orange. Let's get some of the blue. Which one? We'll go the light phthalo blue. So in here it's a little bit blue, so we'll do a bit darker. So we'll do a little bit of that just in this section here. And then even just on the outside where it's that little bit of a shadow section. So using these sort of colours together makes it like grey sort of tone, which is great. And then dark cadmium orange. There, burnt sienna. And then down here a little bit. Dark cadmium orange. Down here. So then there's like this sort of darker section here, goes to about there, then over here it's do this color, then the cadmium orange really lightly, and then just go over it very lightly with the burnt sienna. And then with the ivory, darker here, blend it down a little bit. Go in with a little bit more of the cadmium orange. Burnt sienna. Little lines. Ivory. Okay, and then we'll go the ivory sort of towards the bottom. Up here. Let's get some of the bright yellow, light yellow glaze, the brightest of the yellows in here. And then the cadmium orange. And then here, erase this outline really lightly up here. ivory, cadmium orange, really lightly in here, some lines coming up. Dark cadmium orange, burnt sienna, okay, and then we'll add in a little bit more of that blue, the light phthalo blue, over here. Let's go the dark, deep red down the bottom here. And then lightly on the side, blend it up. Cadmium orange, let's go some of the burnt sienna. Cadmium orange. Okay. Dark cadmium orange. Let's go the light cadmium red. Ivory, burnt sienna, dark cadmium orange, darker in here, this one, cadmium, a light yellow glaze, cadmium orange, dark cadmium orange, burnt sienna, dark cadmium orange, and then the light cobalt turquoise, deep red, cadmium orange, erase all of this, and then we'll go with the cold grey one. And then light yellow glaze. So here it's quite yellow, all the way over here, over here, and then cadmium orange. Up here. And then up here. Over here. Then we'll go the light burnt sienna. So here, just really lightly over here. Lines up here. Like this. Then the cadmium orange. Up here. Up here, and then there's this ivory, this little puff coming out the side. Do this with a bit of ivory, can't really see it very well. And then we can get some of the cadmium orange, really lightly. Cadmium orange, dark cadmium orange. Burnt sienna. Some lines coming down here and then blending it up. Some of the yellow. Cadmium orange. Dark red. Back in with the yellow. Cadmium orange. Dark cadmium orange, sorry. Then go the cold grey 1, lines up here, more layers, go the cold grey 6, really light, and then go the deep red, cadmium orange, burnt sienna, darker bits coming down here, and then here, cadmium orange, burnt sienna, couple of lines up here, let's go some burnt sienna. So we're going to do some like wispy bits coming off the edge here. Cold grey 1, blend this down, maybe even with the ivory. Burnt sienna. cadmium orange, burnt sienna, cadmium orange, dark cadmium orange, this way, cold grey 1, cold grey 6, okay, it's pretty cute. I think we need to just have a little break ski and then come back to it. And then the light phthalo blue, I might even get a little bit of black. So up here it's pretty dark. So just really lightly, and then we can get darker just gradually. Blend it out with some of the orange as well. Okay. So I think we need a break from it for a little bit, because once you've been working on it, it's been a couple of hours now, or an hour or two. Need a bit of a break, and then we'll come back and have a look at it with fresh eyes. Start to put in the feet, and then we're on to the branch. Okay, let's go into the little feet. So they're pretty bright coloured, so we're going to use some dark cadmium orange Make sure it's nice and sharp so we can get in a lot of those little details. And we're just going to go around the sort of darkest parts of the feet. Here. Like that, and then we'll go a little bit of the cold grey 6, cold grey 6, lightly in here. Dark cadmium orange. And then we'll outline this guy. So here. And then here, oh, it's really dark, isn't it? Okay, so then here, then here, cold grey 4, 6, cold grey 6. So this comes across here. Like this. This way. Okay, let's get some of the white. So I just need to sharpen this a little bit. So there's a light line here, light line here, bit of shiny on this side, here. Then we'll get the cadmium orange. One little sharpen. And then here it's a little bit darker. Cadmium orange. Like that. We'll add a little bit of the burnt sienna on the outside here. up here. Let's go a little bit of the red, deep red. Cold grey 6. This way. Dark cadmium orange. Okay, and then we'll go over to this other one. So this dark little leg. Cold grey 6. We'll put in these little nails. Like that. And then dark cadmium orange. Lines there, and then this way. Here. Let's go a little bit of the light yellow glaze. White. Do a couple little lines over here. Cadmium orange. And up here. Go lightly over here, and then let's go the dark deep red. This way, this way, this way. Burnt sienna. Add a little bit of black. Okay, then darker in here with the black, make it nice and sharp. Up here. Okay. So underneath here is a little bit yellow and orange, and it's sort of a, let's see if it's brown or grey. It's more of, yeah, like a dark brownie. So we'll mix the burnt sienna with the cold grey 6. Put a little bit of yellow in here, a little bit of yellow in here. Cadmium orange. And then we'll do some orange in here. So there's a little bit of white coming over, so you can use your embossing tool, otherwise just go around it. You don't have to use it, but it's right here, so I may as well. So then some of the burnt sienna. Cadmium orange. Bring it down a little bit flatter. Burnt sienna. Really light over here. Deep red. Burnt sienna. It's really lightly in here. And then go in here. Cold grey 6. cold grey 6, and then the black, just really, really lightly. And you want to make sure that the leg is clearly darker than the back of the tail or wing, either way. Here. Okay, so get more of the dark cadmium orange. So what we can do, like I think we need to go a little bit darker under here, but what I think we can do is just wait until we put a little bit of the branch in, and then we can reevaluate all of this. So next we need to tape up the page, which is going to be the tricky bit. It's always so stressful trying to make sure that it's like in the right spot, and that I want to do the edges just a tiny bit bigger so that they fit. You know, you can't see any white around the edges of the frame when it's framed. It's just a bit stressful for me. And then you can also get the white and go over some of these bits. That'll make it like a little bit shinier. Here. Cold grey 6, add a couple of these little lines in. Lightly glaze over here, and then go over with the cold grey one. Okay, so that's the bird in. So cute. So we'll tape up the page and then we can get started on the little branch. Okay, we're going to get started on this little section here because I feel like it looks like it's the easiest place to start. So we're going to start with the warm grey one. Here it is, and then we'll just erase this a little bit. Let's just start actually by doing a little bit of the black at the bottom. And then it goes, so this goes to about here and then it starts to go up. I'm making the branch like a little bit bigger than the actual reference, so I've just extended this out a little bit. Then here, something like that, and then here. Okay, let's go the warm grey one. Do a base layer over here. Black. Okay, so this bit should be over here. So we'll go just like this and extend it out because I'm just sort of making it up. And then the cold grey 6 up here. Cold grey, warm grey one. And then up here, across. Nice base layer here. So then we're just going to go through and glaze through some colours that we can see. So you can see like orangey, so the cadmium orange, really nice and lightly on the side, just down here. So just really, really lightly. There's some in this sort of section. And then up here, really lightly, some at the top. And then we'll get some of the light cobalt turquoise and then glaze this down really lightly here because it's quite light, so just really lightly. We don't want it to look too blue, you just want a bit of that tingy tone in there. And then a bit down here. So I think we might pick the cold grey 3, pretty much because I just have it in front of me. Just swatch this down. And then we're going to just map out where we can see all these darker bits. So here, again, I'm kind of just making this section up, sort of following it, but they're all sort of in the wrong spot. But it just actually doesn't matter. And then here, it's all really dark under here. Some lines in here. Up here. Up here. Up here. Across here. It's really lightly, and then starting to get a little bit darker where you can see those little details in the wood. Across here. And then up here. And then under here, a little bit more of the cadmium orange, a little bit more in here. This. And then just really little sort of splotchy bits around. Blend it down. Cadmium orange. Gonna go really, really lightly with the deep red. I feel up here. And then go the black. Up here. Under here. Up here. All right, let's get the cold grey 6. And we can start to go darker. up here. Up here a little bit. Is my light flickering so much? So what we're sort of doing over here is just going around, so we've got this little shape that we've made, just going like around the edges of it a little bit darker and sort of leaving the middles lighter, and that has that, you know, different sort of shadow texture. So if that makes sense. So here again we've got this one, so just sort of going in the outer side really, really lightly, and then sort of outlining it just really, really gently. Why is that happening? Yeah, so I can just continuing on that way, making like all different shapes. Up here. Get the cold grey 3. Do some more of these. And sort of blending down at the bottom, getting a little bit more of a shadow in there. Up here. Okay, and then we'll get some more of the cadmium orange. Blend this down really lightly. And then up here. Some little sort of dots in here, and then go in with the warm grey 1 again, and we'll just blend this all down. Cold grey 3. Bit darker here. Darker in here. Let's go the cadmium orange in here. and then cold grey 3. Cadmium orange. Cold grey 6. Do a couple little details up here. Okay, and then we'll get the black again. Might go in with a little bit of the dark red under here. Black. Black. Okay, a little bit more of the cadmium orange. Cold grey 3. So let's go around here and we'll just make some more sort of shapes to darken it up a bit, and then here all right. How do we feel about that? It's all right. Let's get the cold grey 3 again. Really lightly, just darken it up a little bit. Cadmium orange. Okay, cute. So then let's go up here. Alright, so right underneath the feet, let's erase a tiny bit of this and just do little sections at a time. So warm grey 1 going around the outside. Going around these little claws. Okay, so we're going to go in with some of the cold grey 3, just where we can see all of this grey section. So here, here. So I'm just leaving some little sections clear where there's that brown sort of tone, same as this wood section. Okay, cold grey 4 up here. Okay, this is where we can see these darker sections in here. Here, so right here it's pretty dark. It's like all a big shadow section. So over here, just doing some like little dots and uneven textures. And then let's go some ivory in this section, which is where we can see this brown colour. Warm it up a little bit. Cold grey, cadmium orange, sorry. Really, really lightly. So this colour is, it's a bit pinky too. So I think that'll be fine, just to use the ivory and the cadmium orange. Up here, really lightly over here. And then cold grey 3. Up here. Grey over here. Let's go a little bit of the burnt sienna, just really, really lightly. A little bit of this colour. Ivory. Alright, so then let's get the black. So get the black, really sharp point. So then we're going to use the really sharp point in here. Over here. Little details here. Cold grey 6. We'll go some of the dark cadmium orange. Add a little bit of that in here. Up here. Cold grey 6. Black. So this brings us to the end of the first section of the tutorial. Jump over for part 2 where we complete the rest of the branch and put in all of the background. Remember to put your works in progress on the Facebook group or in the Patreon chat because I would love to see how they're going.